Welcome to the Real Estate Espresso Podcast, your morning shot of what's new in the world of real estate investing. I'm your host, Victor Menashe. On today's show, we're examining home buying for the next generation of home buyers. Last week, we talked about a bubble forming in the luxury home segment where older homeowners are aging out of the home market. And through a combination of affordability, sheer demographic numbers, and market taste, there's a fall in demand at the top end of the market, where in fact there's a shortage of homes at the entry level. On today's show, we're taking a deeper look at buyers entering the market for the first time. We saw home buying rates bottom out in 2011-2012 for new home buyers. This was the bottom of the real estate market following the 2008 financial crisis. Young home buyers were taught that home ownership was risky, but the truth is that the opportunity of a lifetime existed in 2011 and 12, and home prices have increased every year ever since. They've increased as banks started lending money again, and home buyers came back into the market. Prices rose in response to the supply-demand equilibrium at that moment in time. The actual number of young home buyers has increased every year since 2012. It points to a real rebound in home buying patterns. Or does it? According to U.S. Census data, the percentage of home ownership for the group aged from 25 to 34 years of age was at 20% of that age group in 2006. But it's fallen every year since and now sits at 15% of that age group. Despite the rebound in home ownership in the millennial group, in terms of absolute numbers, the actual percentage of home ownership participation continues to fall year over year. There are a number of reasons why this might be true. It would be easy to conclude that millennials simply aren't as inclined to buy homes as the previous generation. The folks at Fannie Mae decided to take a deeper look at the data. They measured rates of home ownership of specific cohorts and compared them year by year. When I asked Dr. Doug Duncan, chief economist at Fannie Mae, about this, he had a simple answer. He concluded that millennials tend to buy houses based on specific life events. They tend to buy houses when they get married or have babies. He's saying that people are getting married and having babies about 2 years later than the previous generation. But once the decision to have children kicks in, home buying is not far behind. In fact, the data in the Fannie Mae report seems to support that, along with the idea that the rebound in home ownership for a specific cohort is the best measure of current home buying sentiment. According to Fannie Mae, the conclusion to be drawn is that the cumulative age group rates of home ownership do not represent the current market behavior, and it's the current market behavior that drives current housing market activity. To better understand the demographic underpinnings of the market activity, the emphasis needs to shift towards the most recent cohort in terms of home ownership activity, while also dispelling the illusion that millennials have less preference for home ownership, or somehow that their home ownership demand has failed to respond to the economic recovery. In this light, the prospect for millennial home ownership is somewhat brighter than many have been led to believe. But I have to say, it seems like a statistical rationalization. Yes, if more 28 and 29-year-olds are buying houses than their previous counterparts, well, that's great. But at the end of the day, the cumulative numbers are going to need to absorb the inventory freed up by baby boomers aging out of the market. If the number of millennials buying homes is truly increasing in a statistically significant way, we should see it reflected in both absolute numbers of home ownership and in terms of the percentage of home ownership. Yes, there was a segment of that group who did not buy when the market was falling, but that's over with now. In fact, it's been almost 5 years, and they should be jumping into home ownership if they're truly just as inclined to home ownership as the pundits claim. I believe there's another simple explanation which the analysis has overlooked. Student debt in the past decade has exploded. Folks in their 20s with an average of $39,000 in student debt are not rushing out and buying houses. If the national home ownership rate is 60%, which is low compared with historical norms, and millennial home ownership sits at 15%, that's a large gap to make up. It says that the bulk of people are not buying their first home until well into their 40s. That's quite a bit different from what it used to be a couple of generations ago. So what does this all mean? It means that people still need a place to live. It means that if home ownership is falling, the demand for rental housing is only going to increase. That's good for landlords, and that's good for real estate investors. We're already seeing that in some states in the country like California. California is seeing its rate of home ownership declining year over year. People who grew up living in single-family homes will want to live in a single-family home when they grow up too, even if they don't own it. Increasingly, there's demand for single-family rental houses. As you think about that, have an awesome rest of your day. Go make some great things happen, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.